What is your best tip for staying productive when you work from home? This was a question posed by a journalist back in 2020, looking to hear from professionals who have moved to a remote work format in response to COVID 19. Remember that back in 2020? Despite the fact that many people, almost the entire world, was forced to work from home starting in March of 2020, and have continued to do so, I am still asked this question by journalists, by clients, and by participants in my workshops. Now that a lot of people are transitioning to a hybrid schedule of working from home some days and back in the office on others, this question has not disappeared from the FAQ list that so many people ask me. Now, in a different video, I addressed hybrid schedule specifics, but in this particular video, I would like to address specifically working productively from home. So whether you work from home every single day or you're working a hybrid schedule, here are quick tips for staying productive when you work from home. Before COVID 19, I worked on site half the time and then I worked remotely half the time. I have been coaching and presenting virtually since 2013, back in the old days when everything was done just through the phone before we even had video conferencing. Once I started working 100% remotely, I still kept two of my primary top time management strategies that I used before COVID and I use everywhere and continue to use when the lockdown happened. And I also added a third tip. So I'm going to share these tips with you. Tip number one was to continue implementing time blocking. I've created estimates of how much time each week I should devote to the different job components. And when you understand your job components, your job responsibilities, and the estimated times that go along with them, instead of just allowing things to happen to you, you can now make the conscious, intentional decision to decide where your time needs to go and for how long. Time blocking won't prevent less than stellar things from happening, but what it will do is help you focus each day on which priorities you need to address, as well as modify, adjust, and recover far more quickly when your plans need to change. Time management tip number two is to create realistic to do lists. A whole lot of people create their task lists from stream of conscious. So whatever tasks pop into their head get captured on a list, and then that list becomes their goal for the next day. The important step that's missing is time estimation. When you understand how much time you have in a day to actually work on anything from a to-do list, you'll narrow down which items you truly need to work on. My to-do lists are based on how much time I have left in the day after I factored in previously scheduled meetings, client sessions, and presentations. Sometimes that might only be an hour, maybe 2 hours left in the day for those actual to-dos. So it's important to create realistic to-do lists based on your time estimations and what's already on your calendar. My addition to these time management tips, once we started that lockdown in March of 2020, was to work in chunks. I used to work in one solid block from 7 to 4 or from 10 to 7, depending on my appointments and presentations for the day. Once the lockdown started, I had to start sharing office space and internet bandwidth and a phone line with my husband, who was also now working 100% remotely, working from home, and we had to share all of this. So we had to schedule our work time in chunks around each other's meetings. So that might mean I was working from 6 to 10 in the morning, 11:30 to 2:30, or possibly 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. So when you are working from home, you're not necessarily working in one solid block because there's probably a reason why, now that we're exiting from COVID and being forced to work remotely, there's a reason why you're choosing to work from home. And it might be because of particular personal responsibilities you need to address during the daytime. So consider working in chunks. You can still get the same amount of work time in, it's just spread throughout the day. Those were the tips that I shared with the journalists back in March of 2020. And they still remain the same productivity tips today, whether you are working 100% remote or in a hybrid situation. So keep these tips in mind. If you are working a hybrid schedule, be sure to hop over to my other video with specific tips related to transitioning back and forth between your on-site office and your office at home.